So I'll finish up with just some thoughts about the next steps. So as I said, this is a learning journey for us, and we are far from being finished with learning and doing the mistakes we need to do along the way. But the data and the insights we're getting out of this and the response and the feedback from people going through this is extremely good. So the element of allowing people to search out journeys for themselves and to still be able to talk about aligned leadership culture is key for us. So when we look into 19, basically what we'll need to do is make sure that the content in the portal is good and relevant. So there'll be a much stronger curation of what we allow people to access. And the most exciting point is that when we have 1,000 leaders or 2,000 leaders in there, we'll begin to have sort of a peer recommendation. So in the system, you score how useful the content block was for you, and that will aggregate into then popping it up higher on the peers that are working with a similar competence. So it becomes sort of a Netflix algorithm of saying, if you like this assignment, maybe you'll also like this one, based on the feedback from your peers. And I think that is extremely interesting to see how the group of leaders can start through the system to advise on good ideas to develop competencies that they've worked with themselves. We are working to have a much stronger interface with the face-to-face training. So next step of the program will be that we'll have much more focus on the individual learning journeys and bringing them in to the face-to-face training. We are now launching soon the second 360, which will be basically meaning whether Sergio or I will be fired or will be here tomorrow, because hopefully we'll see some kind of change on the 360. So after having a year of development for these leaders, hopefully we'll see a change in some way or the other, of saying that there's been an impact in how peers and leaders and subordinates perceive your leadership after a very intensive learning year through this. Then we're working with also making people stay in the system, because it's quite useful while you're in the program and you're completely swallowed up in this. And then when you exit the program, we want to make the leadership portal the thing that extends your learning. So we want to talk about a program that is not the 3 meetings, but a program that spans over several years of development. And we kickstart you through some learning interventions, but then the idea is to keep that learning journey going. And we're trying to examine ways of doing that with updates or follow-ups or little nudging or email reminders or alumni things, or whatever we can do to keep people on that learning journey. And then, of course, the interesting thing will happen when we now begin to see data coming out from the Asia-Pacific region and benchmarking that to the Northern America region and seeing if there are changes. Because one of the discussions we have is the balance between a corporate culture and a national culture. So when we talk about, for example, how to manage conflict, can you talk about that in the same way in Denmark and in Thailand? Or is there a difference in how we do this? And I think most of that is based on sort of our assumptions, and it'll be really interesting to see the data coming back in how these competencies are lived and perceived in regions around the world, in countries around the world, in leadership layers in our company. And then, of course, making sure that we handle this data in a way that makes sense for us and is able to guide some of the choices we make on the organization development and the leadership development going forward. So a busy year for Sergio and for a lot of other people in the company, trying to see what is being built now, an engine that is running good, and now starting to see how we bring in the data and start to gather some insights through it.